What's up, guys, and welcome back. Today we just picked up this baby, 2009 Seadoo GTX 215. Obviously it's seen better days. I just picked this up sight unseen, local to me, for $600, and it has paperwork for both the trailer and the ski. Now, I didn't even open this up yet, but just to show you guys, this is it. So off these pictures, I wound up zelling the guy $600, blind sight, picked it up this morning, and here's the description. Oil pump failure, motor locked up, good shell and trailer. It is an 09. So this is what we got. It is in obviously dirty shape, but honestly the hull is pretty clean. There's some things growing in here, it looks like, but let's go through this thing. Let's see if we can get power, which the battery I think is dead. So yeah, completely dead. But let's see. Now, this doesn't have a pump. I didn't know that, but honestly, it is what it is. You know, I didn't speak to the guy and ask him where it was, but we do have the back Venturi nozzle and a cover, which that alone is awesome, and it actually looks like it's in relatively good shape. Now, anyway, we are going to start opening this baby up, and let's see if we can get power to it. Nice. Okay. So, missing coils, whatever. Engine cover. Okay. Battery connections look a little trashed. Does have some corrosion, but honestly not that bad. I'd love to see how many hours. So apparently the engine's locked up. Now, guys, I did pop this open before, and I just pulled the boot off of the Supercharger just to see, and I don't know if you hear that, but it's still gripping. And I don't think this is charged or seized, because I am literally able to spin this over by hand. Barely, but can spin it over by hand. That's always a good telltale that the engine is not locked up. So let's first just try to throw a battery in this thing and see if we can get it to crank over. I'm gonna throw some PB Blaster in the cylinders just to make sure everything's lubricated. I don't see any real corrosion besides this, and in the back end it probably does need a carbon seal, because all this corrosion kind of tells me that water was kicking up, but it also can just be years of neglect. So let's start this. Let's do it. Well, first things first, I think the battery terminals have seen better days, so okay, yeah, that's so now that the battery's out, gotta give some TLC to the terminals. All right, new battery in. Well, new used one. Let's see if we get power. Oh, hold on. Probably maintenance. Does that say 78 hours? It says 78 hours. Wow. Okay. Now, I don't know if the cluster was replaced at one point, then it would reset the hour clock, but we'll hook this up to buds later. But let's just see if we can possibly get this to turn over. Here we go. Wow. That sounds relatively healthy. Okay, so engine isn't locked up. It's spinning freer than some of the other skis that I've worked on. So let's try to just put spark plugs in this and see if we can get this to actually run. And once again, guys, if I did get it to run, it would run without the pump, so it would be a very short run. And honestly, I don't think the gas is good in this anyway. So that's going to be the next thing. We are going to probably have to drain the gas out of this, put fresh 93 in, but I want to see if this will actually turn over. Plugs are in, coils are in. Now, once again, old gas. I don't know if this thing's gonna even turn, but let's attempt it. That was weak. Who's ready for this? Let's see. Huh. That ran. And that just blew out of the exhaust. Ooh, that is ugly. Well, whatever was in there probably just died. Anyway, it runs. So that slapping around was probably the drive shaft, but let's put a pump on this and just see if it actually runs right. Fresh off the Sportster. Yeah, it's ugly. Don't judge. This is literally to test it. Just a test. Now, let's see if it sounds a little better. Moment of truth, everybody. What do we got? Meh. It does start though. Not sure exactly what it is. It's not locked up. Supercharger's still kind of free. Possibly the Supercharger. Kind of scared what we're gonna find in this thing. One way to find out. Okay, actually, it's clean in there. There is not one speck of rust in these cylinders. So, I mean, I kind of hope for this. So, if there's no rust in these cylinders, yes, it can be oil pressure related, but here's what I'm talking about. Our sensor is right underneath here and it is disconnected. So if we can get this plugged in right there, barely see it, I'm sorry, and give this another shot. Alright, so now that we know it's nothing really in there, probably gonna pull this Supercharger because, yeah, we're like 10 years old. This thing looks like it's never been touched. It still had the factory clamp on there. Yes, it has 78 hours, but so I'm gonna try this one more time just for the hell of it. Yeah, okay. I think the Supercharger is locking this up, so let's pull the charger. Should be real fun. and go from there. All right, guys, just one tip. When you're going to remove a supercharger with a bolt that looks like that, in order to really get to it, PCV should be removed. And just a rule of thumb, when you remove the PCV, it's always good habits to remove the valve cover. And the reason why is because when you remove that PCV, this washer sits and the PCV presses this washer into this cam cover. So if you have the valve cover off, you can kind of guide it up and then just take it out, because if it falls into the engine, then your day's ruined. So just something to note. And honestly, I want to take this off anyway because this engine actually looks pristine. It looks like no water was ever in this thing. Obviously, yes, the outside kind of looks like garbage, but internally, I think that once we get the supercharger out, it will spin like 100% better. I do have a supercharger that I can throw in this just to test it, which I plan to. But as for this bolt, typically what I use is a 1/4 inch 12-point wrench, and then that just sits on this like this, and then you can kind of try to get it loose. If it doesn't come loose, then what I've done in the past is simply just pretty much get a multi-tool with a blade on it and just shear that off, and then just you're done. So just something to keep in mind. All right, so I did have to cut that bolt. It is what it is. I tried heat, you try everything, and it just kind of all fails. So I have all 3 bolts out. Just kind of have to try to walk it off. It's not like the easiest to do so, but it is doable. Just takes a little bit of patience. Moment of truth to see if the washer is exploded. There's no weight though, so it shouldn't. But who knows? Okay, well, first off, at first sight, that is bent. Shaft is bent, and I don't know if it'll turn over now, for being completely honest, but I'm going to reassemble this back portion without the supercharger, and then I'm going to crank it over. Never mind. I figured since we're here, I got a replacement. Recap. So inside the engine looks good. Coils, plugs, rebuilt supercharger, which honestly, this was an SBT off the Sportster, and honestly, I'm just doing it for testing purposes. I'm not using that because it will blow up. No question. But now that we ruled everything out, we have our pump in. Let's try to see if this thing turns over. One more time. Bang. I will 100% take that. Let's see if it locks up again. And there you have it, guys. Bad supercharger. And if you look, my guess is if this thing ran any more, it would have definitely exploded. But see that play? That is bad. So with that being said, we are now running, and now we just got to pull the supercharger again, and it should be easier this time. You know, I didn't put the top bolt in temporarily. It will go back in, but going to rebuild that supercharger. This one is completely done. I wouldn't even use it, and really when the bearings are shot like that, you don't want to reuse these anyway. You just buy a new one. But with that being said, this thing honestly does not sound bad. I mean, it's hard to tell because it's still kind of in pieces, but let's see what's next. Get that fresh in. Now for a quick prime. You guys know the drill. One little pop here. Start the pump. One more time. Still yellow. Gonna do that a couple more times because it's still disgusting. To just kind of make this run a little better. So now that that's over, let's prime this again. And fire. All right, let's get this on the hose and see how well it runs. Alright, so it runs, but as you guys can tell, I'm misfiring cylinder 3. Oh, well, I guess that was a bad coil. Let's try this again. So, where is it? It was just cracked. That's enough for a misfire, boys and girls. Let's get a new coil. Better. Alright, gonna give this a minute to cool down the carbon seal, and then we're gonna go for it again. Still missing. We are still missing cylinder 1. So let's check in here. I haven't checked in here yet. Wonder what we're missing. my guess, probably a clogged injector. So next thing, going to probably pull the fuel rail, blow all of these out, and then see how that goes. What to do is I want to see if any codes come back up. Definitely still have that misfire. I'm gonna guess it's a stuck injector because those ignition coil faults most likely were from me unplugging them. So the ECU is reading the ignition coils. I just don't know if it's the actual wiring harness to the injector or anything along those lines, but I'm gonna guess it's just a clogged injector. So next thing, I'm just gonna pull this fuel rail before we even give this a first start and go from there. That looks gunked up. Fuel injector clip. Little cruddy. Let's go see if this is a dead injector. All right, handy dandy injector tester. This is the one I just pulled. Let's see. Dead. Just to confirm. Dead. Let's try the new one. That's better. There you have it, guys. One bad injector later. Let's pop it back in. Let's see how she runs. That sounds a lot better. Time to hook it up to the hose. Nice. And there you have it. Pressure washed. Obviously not perfect yet. Still have to buff it, but so just to recap, not running. It was the supercharger bearing that was locked up. We had a bad injector on cylinder 1, and I was scared it was going to be the ECU, but the injector was just dead. Fresh gas, which it still has to kind of be pumped out. I didn't pull the fuel pump and check the filter, but it's definitely running a million times better. No faults came back, so that's always a positive. But now it's just going to be a matter of actually giving this a nice detail, and it'll definitely be shining again. Obviously it's not going to be perfect like that, but we'll do an oil change, and you know, we'll kind of just get this water ready. Still have some work to do on the pump end. Have to replace that wear ring along with the seal that goes around, but other than that, this should be able to be bolted back up. I'm still debating if I want to do an OPAS delete, OPAS, only because, you know, from the seal sitting, it may leak. So that is always a possibility. But I think I'm going to just leave it as is for now, and we will just continue this build. Let's do it. Nice. Getting cleaner. Let's buff this baby. Yuck. Nice. Let's keep going. I had high hopes, and I don't know why, but that looks like a bear ate it. So, no cover. We'll get a new one. Overfilled, and probably hasn't had an oil change in about 10 years. Let's fill this baby up. there you have it, guys. The GTX is completely done. This is actually going to be sold to the person we rent the shop from. So with that being said, guys, it is perfect. Obviously didn't water test that, but going to be water testing this just to make sure everything's good, it floats, carbon seal's good. But that's it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys on the next one.